Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's top stories. Recent polling shows presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could impact the 2024 race. But take a look at the potential shakeup. Heavy rain collapsed part of Highway 1 along California's coast. Across the country, severe storms, tornadoes, and snow warnings are now in place. A robot dog takes bullets from Massachusetts police during an armed standoff, allowing officers to avoid being shot. As President Biden and former President Trump gear up for a general election rematch, polling shows independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could impact the 2024 race. Kennedy is now the highest polling third-party candidate in over 30 years. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the recent polls.
Polling from the Hill and Decision Desk HQ found Kennedy averaging just under 10% using results from over 100 polls. Trump averaged 41.5%, Biden just over 39%. A Harris X Forbes poll last month had Trump with a 3-point lead over Biden at 46 to 43% and 11% unsure. Kennedy had 12% when added to the race, while Trump maintained a 3-point lead. A Real Clear Politics national average poll has Trump 2.5 points over Biden in a 5-way race, with Kennedy at around 10%. Independent candidates Cornel West and Jill Stein came in just under 2%. A Quinnipiac University poll last week had Biden with a 3-point lead in a one-on-one rematch with Trump. Trump came out leading by 1 point when Kennedy and other candidates are in. Biden in a Reuters Ipsos poll last month had a 3-point lead over Trump in a head-to-head matchup, but Trump took a 1-point lead with Kennedy at 16%. Kennedy told CNN Monday he believes Biden is a bigger threat to democracy than Trump for being the first president in history to use federal agencies to censor political speech in his opponent.
I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court. It shows that he started censoring not just me. 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me.
The 2024 hopeful has a long way to go to catch up to either major candidate and needs a minimum 15% national polling average to qualify for a presidential debate. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Now let's take a look at other top headlines. Voters in Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin weighed in today on their party's presidential nominees. Although the votes won't have an impact on the fact that President Biden and former President Donald Trump have locked up the Democratic and Republican nominations, they do offer clues about enthusiasm among base voters for the upcoming rematch. All 4 states have multiple candidates on the ballot, and 3 of them also have an option to vote for uncommitted or uninstructed delegate. Biden has faced a protest vote over disapproval for his handling of the war between Israel and Hamas. Here's a look at what's happening on the ground in the primaries. Connecticut has 28 Republican delegates at stake and 60 Democratic delegates. In New York, there are 91 Republican and 268 Democratic delegates up for grabs. While uncommitted is not an option on the ballot in New York, a group of activists has launched a Leave It Blank effort. They're encouraging Democrats to submit blank ballots instead of registering a vote for Biden. Voters in Rhode Island will have an uncommitted option on both ballots, as well as voting for former rivals of both Biden and Trump. There are 19 Republican delegates and 26 Democratic delegates at stake. Organizers in Wisconsin calling for a protest vote against Biden are urging voters to choose uninstructed, Wisconsin's version of an uncommitted vote. They have set a modest goal of 20,682 uninstructed votes, the margin Biden won to stay by in 2020. The state has 41 Republican and 82 Democratic delegates up for grabs. President Joe Biden today held a 2-hour phone call with Chinese Communist leader Xi Jinping as tensions between Washington and Beijing remain elevated. The call comes amid heavy global turbulence, the ongoing wars in Gaza and Ukraine, as well as North Korea's nuclear capabilities, were topics of discussion. Other issues that have strained the Washington-Beijing relationship also came up, including Taiwan, China's support for Russia's defense industry, Chinese efforts to hack U.S. critical infrastructure, China's recent provocations in the South China Sea, and Beijing's human rights abuses. Biden also noted his worries about China's trade tactics that the White House said harm American workers and emphasized that the U.S. will do what it must to prevent advanced U.S. technologies from being used to undermine U.S. national security. The president also emphasized the need for continued action to address illegal narcotics trafficking and restrict the flow of certain precursor chemicals used to make synthetic drugs like fentanyl. The call between Biden and Xi comes as senior U.S. officials prepare to travel to China. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is set to depart Washington on Wednesday for a 6-day trip that would include engagements in Guangzhou and Beijing, while Secretary of State Antony Blinken is also set to visit China, though it's unclear when. Updates on the Israel-Hamas war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli forces unintentionally killed 8 workers in the Gaza Strip.
Unfortunately, in the last day, there was a tragic incident where our forces unintentionally struck innocent people in the Gaza Strip. It happens in war, and we are thoroughly investigating it. We are in contact with the governments and will do everything to prevent such occurrences in the future.
According to World Central Kitchen, an Israeli airstrike killed at least 7 of its 8 workers on Monday. World Central Kitchen is a U.S.-based group delivering food to civilians in Gaza. The group said the victims included citizens of Australia, Poland, the United Kingdom, and a U.S.-Canada dual citizen. The killed workers were traveling in 2 armored cars when the convoy was hit in central Gaza. The Israeli military said an independent body will open an investigation into the incident and get to the bottom of it. The military offered condolences and promised the investigation will be thorough and transparent.
The victims of yesterday's strike join a record number of humanitarian workers who have been killed in this particular conflict. These people are heroes. They run into the fire, not away from it. They show the best of what humanity has to offer when the going really gets tough.
Shocked and saddened to hear the reported deaths of aid workers in Gaza. We're urgently working to confirm all the details, but my thoughts right now with their friends and family.
Australia expects full accountability for the deaths of aid workers, which is completely unacceptable. Aid workers and those doing humanitarian work, and indeed all innocent civilians, need to be provided with protection.
Meanwhile, Iran has vowed to retaliate after a strike it blamed on Israel killed 2 of its top commanders and 5 others at its consulate in Syria on Monday. The Israeli military spokesperson said the intelligence indicates it was a military building of Quds forces disguised as a civilian building. On the West Coast, heavy rain over the weekend caused a part of California's iconic Highway 1 to collapse. Across the country, other states are expecting severe storms, tornadoes, and snow.
Motorists crept along one lane of a scenic stretch of California's iconic Highway 1 on Monday after a giant chunk of it collapsed into the ocean following heavy weekend rains. It stranded as many as 1,600 people in the coastal community of Big Sur. The collapse occurred Saturday about 17 miles south of Monterey, and traffic backed up for miles in both directions. Convoys of vehicles resumed Monday morning for one lane of the highway, but most of the people trapped in Big Sur were allowed to leave when a single lane was reopened Sunday after being closed overnight. The famous route has seen frequent closures because of collapses, mud flows, and rock slides during severe weather. Across the eastern half of the U.S., the threat of a severe weather outbreak grows as tens of millions of people face dangerous hail and destructive tornadoes starting Tuesday morning. According to the Storm Prediction Center, parts of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana are at most risk. Ohio hasn't had a tornado threat this substantial in more than 10 years. Alabama and western Georgia, north to parts of Indiana and West Virginia, could also see tornadoes. More than 75 million people are at risk for severe thunderstorms from the Gulf Coast to Great Lakes. Many could see damaging winds of 60 to 80 miles per hour and hail ranging from the size of quarters to baseballs. Over 17 million people from Illinois to Maryland also face a flood threat from the storms. The tornado threat will lessen Wednesday as storms shift east, but there is still a risk for severe thunderstorms with damaging winds and hail in parts of the mid-Atlantic and Florida. The wintry mix is expected to bring snow to Michigan and Wisconsin Wednesday and Thursday.
A robot dog gets credit for reducing deadly risks during an armed standoff in Massachusetts. State police said the dog took bullets for his human partners after being shot during the incident. NTD's Jason Blair brings us more.
Roscoe is the name of a police robot dog that was deployed during a potentially deadly standoff at a residence in Cape Cod, Massachusetts in early March. 30-year-old Justin Morera had barricaded himself in a home and was armed with a rifle. Roscoe, along with 2 other robot colleagues, were able to enter the residence to look around. The Massachusetts State Police said in a press release, quote, "The remote-controlled robotic platforms allowed the team to safely gather crucial intelligence and provide situational awareness of the suspect and the home's interior." Law enforcement were able to locate Morera in the home using Roscoe. When Morera saw Roscoe, he first knocked him over. However, when he saw that Roscoe was able to get up and keep following him, Morera shot the robot canine with his rifle. Roscoe was shot 3 times and became inoperable. The Massachusetts State Police said in a press release that Roscoe, quote, "prevented the need at that stage of response from inserting human operators and a real dog, and may have prevented a police officer or canine from being involved in an exchange of gunfire." Law enforcement then threw tear gas into the home, which eventually prompted Morera to surrender without further incident. Jason Blair, NTD News.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. A first-in-the-nation bill proposed in California aims to give employees uninterrupted personal time. Bosses can't punish people for ignoring calls off the clock. New technology will allow the blind and visually impaired to experience the total solar eclipse. The natural phenomenon will take place on April 8th. There is a new 15-story mural in Los Angeles showcasing LA's newest baseball star. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. California employees could soon ignore communications from their boss when they're off the clock without worrying. An assembly member proposed a bill this week that aims to give employees uninterrupted personal time.
California could be the first in the nation to give employees a right to disconnect. Assemblymember Matt Haney introduced Assembly Bill 2751, which would require a public or private employer to give employees the right to disconnect from communications with the employer during non-working hours. Except for emergency or for scheduling, an employee has the right to ignore communications from the employer during non-working hours. The employer and employee would agree on what non-working hours are. The bill would allow an employee to file a complaint if an employer violated the agreement. The bill was referred to the Assembly Labor Committee.
As viewers get ready for a total solar eclipse next month, new technology will allow the blind and visually impaired to hear the celestial event. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the device.
On April 8th, a total solar eclipse will cross North America. The blind and visually impaired might not be able to see the natural phenomenon, but they will be able to appreciate it.
We developed a device called the Light Sound that essentially takes light and converts it to sound as a tool for the blind and visually impaired.
A prototype was first used during the 2017 total solar eclipse in North America. Back then, people like Min Ha felt excluded from the event.
In 2017, I just distinctly remember feeling really left out. I actually have this memory of feeling a little bit resentful that I couldn't be a part of this eclipse in some way.
When the sun is bright, light sound plays high flute notes. As the moon begins to cover the sun, the sound shifts to a mid-range clarinet. A low clicking sound indicates the viewer is in the path of totality, when the moon completely obstructs the sun.
Even though we can't see something, it doesn't mean that we can't experience something. We have a lot of different senses and different ways of enjoying different experiences.
This year, Light Sound hopes to distribute at least 750 devices to Eclipse events in Mexico, the US, and Canada. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
One of the few remaining Pearl Harbor survivors recently passed away. The centenarian had been suffering from heart failure.
Lou Conter, the last living survivor of the USS Arizona battleship that exploded and sank during the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor, has died. He was 102. His daughter said Conter passed away on Monday at his home in Grass Valley, California, following congestive heart failure. She was beside him along with 2 of her brothers. The Arizona lost over 1,100 sailors and Marines in the 1941 attack that launched the United States into World War II. Conter was a quartermaster. He had recalled how one bomb penetrated steel decks 13 minutes into the battle and set off more than 1 million pounds of gunpowder stored below. During a 2008 oral history interview stored at the Library of Congress, he said the explosion lifted the battleship 30 to 40 feet out of the water and everything was on fire. His autobiography, The Lou Conter Story, recounts how he joined other survivors in tending to the injured, many of them blinded and badly burned. The sailors only abandoned ship when their senior surviving officer was sure they had rescued all those still alive. The rusting wreckage of the Arizona still lies where it sank. More than 900 sailors and Marines remained entombed inside. Only 335 Arizona crew members survived. Conter retired in 1967 after 28 years in the Navy. With Conter's death, there are now 19 survivors of the Pearl Harbor attack still living.
Now turning to some somber news from the world of sports. We have a tragic update involving former NFL cornerback Vontae Davis. NTD's Carlos Reyes has more on the story.
Former cornerback Vontae Davis, known for his remarkable career in the NFL, was found dead on Monday at a residence in South Florida. The Davie police stated that foul play is not suspected at this time. Davis, age 35, left a mark on the league during his tenure. Remembered for his standout performances and 2 Pro Bowl selections during his 6 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts, Davis was more than just a player on the field. He was a beloved teammate, known for his infectious smile and positive energy. His unexpected retirement in 2018, famously exiting during halftime of a game with the Buffalo Bills, sparked much conversation. Davis's decision to prioritize his health and well-being over the game resonated deeply with fans and players alike. His departure, though abrupt, was a poignant reminder of the toll the sport can take on its athletes. The outpouring of grief and condolences from across the NFL community speaks volumes about Davis's impact both on and off the field. The Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, the teams he played for during his career, expressed their heartfelt sadness at the news of his passing. Colts owner Jim Irsay and former teammates including stars like T.Y. Hilton and Reggie Wayne shared their sorrow on social media. In a career spanning a decade, Vontae Davis left an enduring legacy. With 22 interceptions, 97 passes defended, and 395 tackles across 121 games, his contributions to the sport will be remembered for years to come. As we mourn the loss of Vontae Davis, let us also remember the importance of prioritizing health and well-being, both on and off the field. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, friends, and loved ones during this difficult time. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
The LA community celebrated the unveiling of a new mural featuring Shohei Ohtani, one of the Dodgers' newest stars. NTD's Christina Crona tells us more from Los Angeles.
3, 2, 1. A new Shohei Ohtani mural was unveiled in Little Tokyo on March 27th, one day before the Los Angeles Dodgers home opener. The massive painting of Ohtani covers the side of the Miyako Hotel. Robert Vargas, the Boyle Heights artist, painted the mural freehand in just 13 days.
You know, my motivation is to just bring people together, and the fact that people are responding to that and already developing a relationship with the wall, it really, it's a success.
The mural shows two portraits of the star, one batting and one pitching. It stretches 15 stories in height and 60 feet wide.
This mural has become so much more than just one player, just like the city is so much more than just one player. We're Team LA. And looking at everybody here and seeing the whole country of Japan rooting for Shohei, literally that nation and Dodger Nation all on the same team. So how beautiful is that?
Many fans came out to see the mural of their favorite player.
I love Angels and I love Dodgers as well, and I love Shohei so much. And then as a Japanese, today I'm very honored to be here. And then when I see this mural, I am proud of my country, Japan.
Obviously, he's great at baseball, but he becomes an icon because not only is he very cheerful and happy, but he's also very friendly towards others, helpful, and also a great teammate.
This is on my way to work every day. I get to look up and see that beautiful image, and it just cheers me up.
Beneath the mural is a QR code for fans to scan into a smartphone and then see the mural come to life. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. And the more China news, the Pentagon taking aim at China's threat in cyberspace. The Department of Defense announcing a new cyber police office. More details coming tonight at China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's what we've got for you tonight. Would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.